This video is about physical and chemical properties and changes. So first, let's talk about physical properties. So a physical property is just a characteristic of a substance that you can either observe or measure without changing the sample's identity. So some examples here, we've got color, size, shape, density, a freezing point or a boiling point. So it's pretty common to use physical properties to separate mixtures. So we can break down physical properties into two different categories. The first category is called an intensive property. So it's a property that does not depend on the amount of matter that's present. So some examples of that would be color, odor, density, boiling point. So these properties do not depend on the amount of matter present. The second category is called extensive properties, and these are the properties that do depend on the amount of matter present. So examples are mass, weight, volume, length. So these properties all depend on the amount of matter that are present. Now that we've discussed what chemical properties are, let's look at chemical properties. So a chemical property is just a characteristic of your sample that indicates whether it can undergo a chemical change or not. So some examples of chemical properties would be flammability, which means will it burn, and then also reaction to light. So we discussed physical and chemical properties, so let's talk about the actual changes. So a physical change means that your sample is not going to change its identity. It's still going to be the same thing. So we've got a picture of the water cycle here. So let's say we start off with condensation. Alright, so we've got the precipitation. So the water is coming out of the clouds, it comes down onto the ground, and then so it changes from a gas to a liquid. So then it goes to groundwater and then it evaporates again. So it's turning back to a gas. So those just changes in state like that are just physical changes. It's still water, even though it's gone from a gas to a liquid. Some other examples are melting, boiling, bending, cutting. All of these changes do not change the identity of your sample. Okay, so chemical changes, these are a little bit different. So this time, with a chemical change, your sample is going to change in identity. So you're going to have a formation of a new substance. So some examples that you would see for a chemical change would be to see light produced, feel heat produced, if you see bubbles or a new smell, smoke. These are all examples that a chemical change is occurring. So some examples would be rusting, so like a nail rusting, burning paper or wood. So these are all examples of chemical changes. So this is just a simple illustration to show you guys some examples of physical and chemical changes. So we've got a girl dropping a plate here. So this is a physical change because the plate is still a plate. It may be smaller pieces of a plate, but the plate still hasn't changed identity. It's not turned into something new. And we've got, see a girl over here with a match. This is a chemical change because the match is now on fire. And so the match is going to be turned into ashes. So that's a chemical change. We're going from a wooden match to ashes, something completely new. In the middle here, we've got, looks like a pot of boiling water. So we can see that it's a physical change because the water is just going from a liquid state to a gaseous state. So even though it's changing states, it's still water. At the bottom here, you can see this. This is the wood burning. That's another chemical change. So we're going from a wooden log, and you burn it, and then it turns to ash. So it forms a new product. So that's called a chemical change. And then last, we have a physical change here. The boy is chopping the wood in two. So even though he's making the wood smaller, it's still wood. So it has not changed its identity. It still would. So that's a physical change. Alright, so based on this video, take a few minutes to go through this learning check, 1 through 9, and decide, or actually 1 through 10, and decide whether these are examples of physical or chemical changes. So go ahead and write this in your notes, and then you can bring it to school and your teacher will check it. I hope that this has been a good video, and have a great day.